exactly what we aim to do. George Parker from the FT.
Yes, back in 2004, this is a question for the Deputy Prime Minister, Vince Cable said that the abolition of the DTI would be the largest act of deregulation. Plainly, there's an opportunity now to carry out that promise. Has the policy changed over time? And if it has, why? What do you see as the government's role in supporting business?
I think it has bluntly changed very dramatically. I think since Vince said that, I mean, the world has changed economically. There's great bombs gone off in our financial services sector. The economy has been dealt a hammer blow, the likes of which I don't think we've seen in the post-war period. So we need to rebuild not only the public finances, we also need to rebuild the British economy on new, sustainable foundations out of the rubble of the old economy. And I think one of the things that Vince will be doing, and I'm very excited he's going to be in a position to do this, is to create new ideas about new forms of growth, new forms of investment, new forms of innovation. And he, obviously working together very closely with George Osborne, will be in a great position to be able to map out an optimistic vision for a new kind of economy built out of the rubble of the old.
I'm going to take two more questions. That's Toby Helm at the back and Roland Watson. So that's the Observer and the Times. They were perfect, delicate balance, I think, don't you?
Prime Minister, could I ask if this is such a fantastic agreement for new politics, can I ask what you would possibly have against proportional representation?
Well, I've made very clear my views about our electoral system and about proportional representation, but I feel it was right, given the result, given the need for strong and stable government, to make the important concession of saying that we should have a referendum on the alternative vote system. I wanted to demonstrate that the Conservative Party would go the extra mile, as William Hague put it, to try and build this coalition. And so we will have that legislation. It will include a referendum clause, and it will include alternative vote. And there will be a referendum. There'll be a campaign in which people can campaign freely, as we said at the time. But it is part of the very important part, I see, of building the trust between our two parties to build that coalition for the good of our country. Roland Watson.
Just on the point of a five-year parliament, is that an aspiration, or will that be fixed in early legislation? Given the state, the range, the spectrum that your parties both represent, will you both be more tolerant of dissent than you would normally be, or are you demanding total loyalty to the cause? And thirdly, you mentioned the Thirsk and Moulton by-election. Will you be encouraging your candidates to campaign against each other? And as we get down the line of this Parliament, and both of your candidates will have records to defend, how do you see that panning out?
Well, in terms of the by-election, we're not merging our two parties, so we'd expect our parties to put up candidates and to campaign in that intensely reasonable way that we always do. That is the first thing, and obviously that will happen quite quickly, that by-election. In terms of fixed-term parliaments, this is not an aspiration, this is going to be very early legislation. We want that fix because we think that that would make for good and strong and determined government that can act in the long term. Fixed parliaments is something that's been knocking around in terms of political reform for a long time, and I think now is the moment to do that. I'll ask Nick to answer all these as well. Tolerance of dissent. We want to have one of the reasons for coming together is we had a strong majority together, both in the House of Commons and in the House of Lords. And I'm sure maybe our whips can learn new tricks off each other. But no, I mean, of course, people sometimes will want to take a stand on an issue, but the aim is to have both parties firmly committed to a coalition agreement that is set out in full detail that will provide the good and stable government and the reforms that our country need. That is the aim, and I think in a very short period of time, we've come a huge way to achieving it.
I mean, the only thing I would add is we have our own conventions, culture and traditions in this country, but this, of course, represents a very significant change. And, in other political cultures, it would not be even a faintly radical thought, the idea that parties might cooperate with each other in government for the good of the country, but campaign against each other at election time. And that is precisely the kind of the kind of thing that you will see now. And I hope, this is the ambition anyway, I hope that people will find it relatively unsurprising relatively quickly. And as David has quite rightly said, we can only help bring that about by being successful in delivering the good government that we have that we've negotiated in this coalition agreement.
Can I thank you all very much indeed. I'm afraid I've got to go and appoint the rest of this government, the rest of this cabinet, so we can get on with doing the work that Nick and I were both talking about. But thank you very much indeed for coming. Thank you very much.